Welcome to the podcast, Colts Nation 365. This will be episode number 10, and I'm your host, Zach Boyd. Today we'll have two separate guests on here. We'll have Chris DuBoise from ColtsNation365.com. We're also going to introduce a new writer from ColtsNation365.com, Adam Reuter. How you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing great, man.
Man, awesome. So I guess we've got a little bit of news today, kind of go over that before we get into the injury report. Deontay Foreman went on IR as well as expected. Reese Fountain. We did sign Chandark West. Derek Kindred also got cut today in effort to open up a new spot. I'm not for sure who took his spot yet, but we'll be able to update you on that pretty soon. Guys, injury report wise, Chris, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so our obviously our main injury report, start with Andrew Luck. Still not practicing this week, but right before the game, there was a video that came out of him doing some nice lateral movements. That's a very, very good sign. It looks like he's most likely, still on track to play for week 1, unless he has some sort of setback where he gets more pain. It's looking really good for us.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew Luck, that video, I think that kind of allowed all Colts to kind of take a deep breath. Adam, what are your thoughts on Andrew? I know probably before that everybody was a little bit more hesitant. After that video, you feeling the same, bud?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, especially because that's exactly what Chris Ballard said that, what he was struggling with the most was the side-to-side lateral movement. So, I mean, it's definitely no coincidence that's why he was doing that. But, based on his reaction, he was, joking around, having a good time. So, if he was having a lot of pain, I mean, or any pain, then, I mean, he was hiding it pretty well. So that's got to be a good sign for his chances week 1.
Yeah, very, very encouraging. Hey, Chris, real quick, I know you've been monitoring Jabal Sheard and maybe Paris Campbell a little bit. Any news on that, or is that just kind of same old, same old?
No, it's still the same. I know Paris Campbell, I believe, dressed one day last week, so that's some good news on him. They weren't obviously going to put him in the preseason game that early, but still no word on Jabal Sheard and his availability for week 1.
Yeah, I guess definitely looking like maybe that designation to return from IR from him. I guess we'll hear a little more from that here in a couple weeks coming up. Let's hop into kind of your guys' thoughts of the, game 2 against the Browns, things you like, things you didn't like. Adam, I'll start with you, man. What were some of the things that you did like in that game from us in that game?
Yeah, I'd say compared to last week, the offense collectively as a unit had a lot more success, and I think that really started with Jacoby Brissett. Last week, I mean, he just did not look that sharp, and this week was a lot different, which has got to be great for, his confidence going into the rest of this preseason. But that corner touchdown to Eric Ebron, that was one of the better throws I've ever seen him make, and a great catch too. But I mean, it was exactly where the two defenders couldn't get to it. So, I mean, you got to have feel a lot better about that just in case, Luck is not ready to go week 1. But the defense did look, a little bit, softer. But, it's the preseason, so you can't, criticize too much on that part. But overall, a lot better than week 1 for sure.
Chris, what about you, bud?
Yeah, one of the more impressive parts, I think, of the Colts defense actually was going to be our defensive line. I think Kamoko Toure had a really, really nice day. He had he had a sack. He had a nice tackle for loss on a run play. And he just looked like, he finally got a little bit away from the third down designation where he's just rushing the passer. Looks like he's going to be a little bit more well-rounded. I was also very impressed with Karan Reed. I think he was on the second or third team, but he was constantly in that backfield making plays. I think he led the team with 4 tackles, as well as Ben Banigou. He had a couple really nice snaps, got to the quarterback on one of them. Now it looks like our defensive line is going to be as deep as we think it's going to be.
One guy that really stood out for me is Deon Cain. We've been hearing for 2 years just how good he's looked in those training camp practices. But, he just hasn't – we haven't get to see him on the field, and it was just really nice. I think he had something like 8 catches, 70, 80 yards. It was a really nice day for him. And you feel good for a guy coming off an injury like that, just kind of bouncing back. And really, he's kind of moving up on the ladder. I listened to a few things this morning podcast-wise. Kevin Bowen, a guy who will actually be on our show tomorrow morning, said that he does expect Cain to keep kind of climbing that ladder. And if Paris Campbell can't go, or they're going to work him slowly back into this thing, he said Deon Cain could be that guy to take that spot. Transitioning into kind of some things that didn't look so good, 2 weeks in a row, the offensive line, man, it just looked, for me, they just looked out of sorts, just no continuity together. We didn't have Quentin Nelson, but still, you want to have a little more continuity when it comes to that. What are your guys' thoughts? We'll go with Chris first on our O-line. You think it's just a little too early to worry about it, or you think it's maybe time to start thinking about that? Adam, are you there?
Oh, I thought you said Chris first.
Yeah, actually, Adam, we may be having technical difficulties with Chris. What are your thoughts on the O-line, man?
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see Josh Andrews get the start at left guard over Big Q. I kind of thought that they'd put Joe Hagan there, who's got a little bit more experience in there, and he definitely struggled starting off. But I mean, even last week, yeah, it's early, but it is a little bit concerning considering their status from last season and the offensive line coach change they made this year. So that's, like I said, it's a little bit early, but that you can't have first round picks on the entire offensive line. But the right side has definitely been, that's commonly known as a little bit more of a liability with Glow and Braden Smith out there. But Braden Smith has been, for him to go from playing guard in college to be able to start in the NFL is impressive in its own right. But he's definitely got a long ways to go as far as development as a starting right tackle on the outside going against the premier edge rushers of the NFL.
Yeah, man. Maybe just a little too early. I'd like to see all of those guys together. Sounds like Quentin Nelson's probably going to be healthy. And Game 3 is kind of that dress rehearsal. We should see most of those guys up there. Hoping to see them kind of bounce back. Hey, Chris, did you ever get a chance to make back with us, buddy?
Yeah, I don't know what happened with that. That was a weird error.
It's all right, man. We were just kind of finishing up our thoughts on the O-line. What are your feelings on the O-line?
Yeah, it's kind of like the second week in a row. It just seems like our run blocking has not been improved at all. Our pass blocking, I think, got a little bit better. I think part of that is the quarterback. Jacoby was a lot more comfortable in the pocket, stepping up, making good plays. But our run blocking has just been terrible. It's really hard when you can't convert a 3rd and 1, and it just makes the whole offense not move down the field.
Yeah, man, it was a little bit frustrating to watch. It'd be nice to have a little more push from that O-line, but we'll just see what comes this week. We got the Bears. They have a very good D-line, so it'll be a very good test for our team coming up this Saturday back in Indy against Chicago. Moving on, we're going to kind of discuss a few, position battles. I think one of the main positions I think everybody's so interested in is wide receiver. We just have a ton of talent there. It's just going to be a hard position, to cut down when we have to cut down that final 53. You guys have a couple guys that you're targeting. What are your thoughts on? Do we keep 5? Do we keep 6? Adam, I'll go with you first, man. You think we keep 5, keep 6? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's definitely hard to tell what they're going to do, especially with the quarterback situation. I hope that doesn't affect, if they wanted to keep 6 wide receivers and are only to keep 5, because those 3 guys in Zach Pascal, Marcus Johnson, and Hogan, those guys belong in the NFL. They'll be playing for some team at some point this year. So it sucks that, you're going to have to let, 2 of those 3 guys go. but that's also a great sign for the competition of the whole wide receiver group that they're pushing each other. I mean, a few years ago with Grigson's rosters, from 40 to 52, I mean, 40 to 53, those guys, wouldn't be on any roster. So it's a great sign to have competition, but I'd say that Zach Pascal and his special teams contributions really probably give him the edge over Johnson and Hogan. I mean, even though that Hogan and, that Johnson have been pretty impressive, I think that Pascal and his continuity, knowing the offense and the special teams, are probably going to put him the edge if they keep 6 wide receivers.
Chris, you think we're going to keep 5 or 6, man?
So I think we're still a little bit too early to know because we still do have some running back issues. I know Jonathan Williams left the game a little bit banged up. Obviously, we went out and signed. I think we signed 2 running backs off the waivers, so including Charkandrick West. So I think it's still a little bit too early to tell because we don't really know how many tight ends we're going to keep. We don't know how many running backs we're going to keep, and obviously the quarterback situation is still kind of fluid right now. So once we kind of figure all that out, I think within a couple of weeks we'll know. I'm definitely with Adam. I think Zach Pascal, especially with his special teams ability, is in the lead right now. But I consistently see Marcus Johnson making plays. So I'm kind of torn to see what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, it'll be very, very interesting. Right now, if I had to say, I think we probably keep 6. I just think we're that talented. But, if Andrew Luck can't play week 1, that's probably not a luxury you can have on this team. So we'll just kind of have to just play it by ear and see how it goes moving forward. Another position that's really, really interesting and seems to have a lot of depth there is the tight end position. Ross Travis had a great game. Hinch's had a great game. You guys, if you had to keep one between Hinch's and Travis, which one are you taking?
I'd probably go with Hinch's, and that would make it 21 great seasons of the Colts having an undrafted rookie free agent, which is pretty impressive on his part. And the only reason I say that is nothing to take away from Ross Travis's game. His comeback from his ACL injury has been phenomenal. I mean, he's only a year removed from that. He tore it in week 4 of last season. But I think that Hale Hinch's blocking contributions, at the tight end position, especially with how much Frank Reich loves his tight ends, you just have to be able to block. And Ross Travis, that's just not his strong point. He's a great vertical threat. I mean, he's a former Penn State basketball player, but he's just not the strongest guy that you're going to be able to line up on the end of the line and have, run blocking for you on power runs. So, I mean, I think that Hale definitely has been showing his receiving capabilities as well. And I think he can definitely fill in that void that Ryan Hewitt left playing that modern day fullback position.
Chris, how you feel about that, man?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to agree. Ross Travis would be more of a luxury, I think, for the Colts at this point because all of our tight ends right now have the ability to catch the football. I think it'd be more important to have that blocking tight end. Maybe not put so much strain on Jack Doyle. I know we want to keep him healthy for the whole season. It'd be a disappointment for him to hurt something on a blocking play when we could have had someone else in there. The Colts did use Henchich in that fullback role during the preseason last game, and I think he's going to do very well. He only had, I think, 16 catches total when he was in college at the University of Alabama, but that's not the reason we like him. We like him for the blocking ability, and I think for that gives him the edge over Travis.
Yeah, man, it'll be very interesting to see how we kind of cut that down. That final 53, I think we've already talked about it kind of behind the scenes. We're going to do a final 53, right after the season ends and kind of grade that and see how that works out. But that should be a fun time. Another position, it's not a big thing to talk about when you talk about, Walker or Kelly. But I think they need their just due on the show. I think Walker did play better, but Kelly really continues to impress. Moving forward long term, is Chad Kelly a guy you guys can both see potentially being Andrew Luck's backup if Jacoby says, hey, I want to maybe have a chance to compete for a starting job somewhere else? Chris, what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, honestly, I think the skill is 100% there. He's proven it in Denver. He was the backup quarterback there. and then he's coming over to the Colts. And I think as long as he can prove that he can keep his, off field incidents to, not affect him in any way, I think he's gonna thrive and honestly be a really quality backup quarterback. He is going to be suspended for the first couple of games this year, so we're going to have to keep Phillip Walker if there's any issues with Andrew Luck. But I'm excited to see what he can do.
What do you think about it, Adam?
Yeah, I definitely think the talent's there with Ryan Kelly. I mean, there's no question about it. But as Chris mentioned, I mean, he has had some off-field incidents, which is now resulting in that, 2-game suspension. So you see a lot of the guys that the Colts bring in, and they usually don't even bother bringing in guys like that. But I was surprised to hear Frank Reich admit the other week that, his I think everyone already knew that his relationship with Jim Kelly definitely played a role in bringing him in. But he kind of paused when he was asked the question, but he gave a truthful answer that, this is his, multiple, third, maybe fourth chance now, not just, in the pros. He at Clemson, he was seen fighting with the coaches on the sideline, and then ended up, transferring from Clemson to Ole Miss. And then obviously he had the incident at the nightclub, which gave him the unfortunate nickname of AK-47 Kelly. And hopefully we'll see more of his throwing abilities on the field than hearing anything off the field with him. But, there's no question that he's more talented than Walker, but I think that suspension is definitely going to be a huge factor.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind he's a better quarterback. We'll just have to monitor and see what Ballard sees in him moving long term. Chris, just kind of wrapping this thing up, what do you want to see out of the Colts moving into preseason game 3, kind of this dress rehearsal? What are you looking for? Is there anything that you want to see us do a little bit better or just kind of change?
I would say the biggest thing I want to see the Colts do is have the ability to run the football in, even short distance or, just 3-4 yards of carry would be really awesome to see. I don't think Jonathan Williams is going to play this next game. I know he had a rib injury, but that's the most important thing for the Colts is, we want to have that running attack, or else it's really going to hurt us down the season.
Rehearsal is preseason game 3.
Yeah, I definitely think on I'm with Chris on the offensive side of the football. If you can't convert a 3rd and 1, that limits you so much offensively on what you can do, and the play calls that you're executing on offense. But as far as the defense, I definitely was happy to see them playing a lot of man coverage on the cornerbacks, which was pretty surprising. I know they're not going to show their hand too much, which is why we haven't seen any blitzes at all. But I was really, really happy to see the Colts play some good man coverage, because they have a few different players like Rock Ya-Sin that really, really thrived in man at Temple. So hopefully they can incorporate that more, and that'll just add an extra element to the defense where we can do some extra things, to be able to get after the quarterback better.
Yeah, man, it should be a very fun game to watch. We'll definitely be monitoring it. And I want to kind of apologize to the fans. We've had some technical difficulties on this podcast. We're going to kind of wrap it up and cut it short. Just want to thank Adam and Chris for hopping on here. This is kind of a weekly thing that we're going to try to do. So we'll see you guys again next week. Be looking out for their writings and everything. We'll be posting them on Twitter and kind of keeping you guys in the loop. Until next time, thanks.
Thanks, Zach.